Alrighty, how's it going, everybody? I know I hadn't really get a chance to make these videos as often as I used to. I used to make these videos all the time. Well, I was making more videos. And a lot of part of it is because I'm busy. A lot of other parts of it is simply because, a lot of times I had to have motivation to make these videos. And I had to get motivated and see what I'm going to talk about. And then I noticed that sometimes people will ask, a question. I don't understand the concept of sometimes people will ask me a certain question on a video on a subject, and I've already made a video on it. So my thing is this: before you request or ask something, go through my archive of videos, and see if I've already made a video on it. It's like when people were asking me how, to route something through the Allen and Heath as an example. I've already made a video on how to do that. I got 4 videos on how the Allen Heath works and routes and so forth. I got plenty of videos on that. So I said I'm not, anyhow. So moving on. So what I want to talk about real quick, and hopefully I'm not very long on this because it's pretty late, and I'm going to post this and then I'm going to sleep because I got to get up in the morning. So here's the deal. I know that there are quite a few people that go out and they watch several different or probably multiple different videos. And then sometimes the way YouTube's algorithm works, they will randomly select videos that they think you want to watch based on what you've watched. So sometimes not everyone's video generate. Like my video will not always generate. But what I want to say, and I want to make this really, really quick. My question is, if you are seeking advice and information on recording studios, my question is this: be careful the advice that you seek and who you seek it from, no matter the skill level, the experience, the background, the career field of the person you might be seeking, because sometimes there are people out there that's been doing this in the business for recording, but there's technically only one specific way they really always talk about doing recording. And the problem with that is that there are so many people that are probably doing music a whole different way than they're seeking advice for. Prime example: if you let's say you write music and you create music, but it's mostly electronic based. Let's say you're using, I use one of the programs that I use. For example, I have the Chord Collection. The Chord Collection has the Triton Extreme, the Chord Workstation, the M1, and all these different chord synthesizers in it. Let's say you're using sounds from that collection of sounds on your hard drive, or so forth, in your DAW to create music. Or you're already using the sound instruments that come in the software like Studio One or Reason or Analog, or you might be using FL Studio, or you might be using the sounds from, let's say it's just Ableton Live or whatever. Why, if I'm using most of those sounds, I don't need a ton of compressors and a ton of microphones to amplify. For example, you'll probably watch, there's certain producers, songwriters, studio guys that you'll probably, if you go out there and watch a lot of these epic recording studio tours or whatever, and you go and see the tour, and the first thing they have is they're always talking about how to mic a guitar cabinet or how to mic drums or whatever, or the best way to capture guitar sounds or whatever. If you are a type of person that have noticed this in a lot of these videos, about how to mic a guitar cabinet or how to mic drums or whatever, and having a good recording, good drum recording room or whatever. And you are, it's like, okay, they're talking about, well, should I buy a set of these warm audio microphones or these set of microphones or these, mics from Mic Tech or MXL or all these different type of mics so I can mic my drum set. And you're using, for example, this MPC Studio to create all your drums because you do EDM or hip hop or dubstep or trap music, whatever. If you're using something like this MPC Studio as an example, you do not have to worry about trying to mic drums. You don't need to mic the room or whatever. You just got to make sure that you got your levels properly and how to make sure you EQ, and if you got to use some of the plugins within the software or whatever, or if you want to send it out and sum it and use some outboard gear or whatever, you just got to know how to do that. But other than that, no, there's no need to worry about trying to mic kick drums when you're using something like this. And if you're watching a ton of these videos, you've probably seen it. There's quite a few guys on YouTube that have channels that they assume they're the problem with a lot of times with a lot of these guys that make these YouTube channels, they are assuming that everybody that watched their channel, one is a guitar player, a drummer, or a vocalist, or maybe they play bass. That's it. That's their assumption. And I'm just saying, it's you'll probably notice that. And that's, for me, I never assumed that. I never assumed that the people that watch certain channels only play drums, guitar, or bass. There are lots of people that play synthesizers, keyboards, or whatever, or people that write using something like this controller, this beat like this MPC, and they go and they use Ableton Live. So the question to the video is, are you getting advice from the wrong people? You may, now they're doing recording techniques for vocals, or, maybe you're going to incorporate a little bit of acoustic recording, such as maybe you're going to add in a real guitar player. Maybe you are going to use some real drums. Maybe you will use a real bass or whatever the case. And you want to incorporate that with your electronic sounds. You can. I do it. But I don't assume that I'm going to gear all of my videos around bands, as an example. I would never assume that, but there are quite a few channels on YouTube that assume that everyone wants to play the only genre of music that they like, whether it's rock, whether it's country, or whatever. And that is that's why I said a lot of times you can't watch channels if you're out there seeking advice on compressors or EQs or bus compressors or how to get a good mix or whatever. A lot of times it's like, well, I'm going to do a mix on this record, but it's a rock record or a heavy metal record, and you do hip hop or R&B. I would not take my advice from a rock guy when I'm trying to mix R&B, i.e., or vice versa. So I'm going to sum up the video like this. There's probably, and then a lot of times there are people out there making assumptions that because they see me in my channel, they automatically think I am hip hop or R&B, whatever the case. Even though I am R&B, I am not hip hop. But you got a lot of people out there that's going to assume that. That's stereotypical. Well, it's kind of like if you see, not everyone, and let's be realistic. Not every black person's into hip hop, just like not every white person is into rock or country. There are quite a few white guys that are into hip hop, R&B, jazz, or whatever. Some, pop, jazz fusion, or whatever. So, and the same thing, there are quite a few. Don't think because someone's Latino that they automatically assume that they're going to be into Mexican or Tex-Mex or salsa or whatever. There are quite a few Latinos that are into R&B or hip hop or rock. It just, so to sum up the video, it's like this. You just make sure that when you're out there, make sure that the people that you're looking for advice on some of these videos are in the same fields of music that you like, that you can benefit from. Because there are some people out there that are making videos, and I watched, and I'll just, it's like I use Produce Like a Pro as an example. Even though he's a very knowledgeable, experienced producer and engineer, the only downside is that the only thing he really knows is bands, which is basically, and the only thing he really knows is bands with drums, bass, and guitar. That's all he really knows. Because he never talks about, he may talk about going to a studio and see maybe a Hammond B3 organ or a Wurlitzer keyboard or an actual grand piano. But I'm talking about actually knowing and talking about like some of my synthesizers I have over here, like my Triton or my Ensoniq or my Motif or my Roland's and synthesizers like that. So, and then just, never really talk about, like listening, R&B, or maybe stuff like that. He knows some of the, of course, naturally being in the business, you heard he's going to talk about Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles or whatever. But I'm talking about really knowing, like maybe some R&B artists like Freddie Jackson or a lot of Luther Vandross music, or going back to listen to Stephanie Mills or Anita Baker or whatever. I guarantee he really never really got into that. My thing is, to sum up the video on this, is just remember, when you're out there seeking advice, make sure that the studios that you're seeking advice for, some of these people that have these channels, know exactly what you're looking for. Because sometimes, like I said before, I've watched and I was compelled to make this video because there are lots of YouTube channels and there's lots of studio tours, and quite a few of the people that are upscale. It's even with, and something like this, even Blackbird, as much money they spent on all the gear, they have everything but a collection of actual real synths, which makes no sense to me. And I've seen people with synthesizer, but they have what I call the old school analog synths, not modern digital synths. And analog, I'm talking about where you got plug-in cables, change parameters, changing knobs to make the sounds, versus all the preset sounds that come in a library that's on a hard drive inside of a synthesizer, like the Core Triton, as an example. Those are modern synths. I don't know why they don't have modern synths when most of the music from, especially in R&B and quite a bit of, if you look at a lot of, I would say like, producers like Pharrell or even Timbaland are using keyboards like Tritons and stuff like that. Timbaland was using Tritons, quite a few. A lot of music, and a lot of Mariah Carey's music's made on modern synths. Mary J. Blige's music's made on modern synths. A lot of R&B bands use synthesizers, modern synthesizers, not those outdated, those outdated from the 80s and 70s synths. I'm talking about modern boards like the Motif XF or the Chord Cronus or the Yamaha Montage or stuff. I'm talking about modern boards that have like, it has 10 banks, and each bank has 127 different sounds on them, and things like that. I'm talking everything from synth string. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. So the people that knows that genre of music. So to sum up the video, that's my point I want to say is sometimes like me, I had to stop watching a lot of those channels because I'm like, all they talk about is, guitars, drums, and bass, and you know, there's a lot of channels like Epic Home Recording Studio, you know, Epic Home Recording, or whatever, and all they know is bands. And I'm like, you know, you guys are, even though I know all about bands and all the different types of genres from rock to country, whatever, but that's only a tenth of the music being made. And that's the, you know, that's what you'll see when you out there watching YouTube and all these different YouTube channels. There are people out there making channels, and they're very limited. And their assumption is they think that everyone only listen to that small genre of music that they make, and so they center their channels around that. And that's like, ooh, you know, like I said, you get this rock guy or country guy and think that that's all his audience. You know, these guys are trying to make, you know, audience. Well, let's show how to put up a set of condenser mics for a set of overheads for a set of drums. Not everyone's using real drum sets. Some people are creating music using stuff, you know, instruments like this MPC. So I turned it off because I haven't been up here in a minute. So that's gonna sum up the video. So just be careful on who you're getting your advice from. I know this is a long video to talk about that, but just be careful who you're learning your advice from the internet when it comes to studio and recording and mixing. Other than that, thanks for watching. You know, they might be giving you, you know, the wrong advice because you don't, you know, like I said, you're not doing the bands. You're doing. So that's going to sum up the video. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great one.